All right, everyone, it's 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Stephanie Lassiter, and I have the pleasure of moderating this ADEIL session. And so we thank you for joining session 1A, called An Emerging Perspective of Online Learning Success and How to Evaluate It. Please welcome Chelsey Pienaar to the session. Chelsey, before you start, folks, you will see some chat between Sally Deckard. She'll be dropping some links or some guidance, and myself. So keep an eye on the chat because this will be an interactive session. And a spoiler alert, I had the joy of looking at this PowerPoint first, and Chelsey's going to bring us some great information on a topic that's near and dear to all of us. So Chelsey, the mic is yours.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. And hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you today. This is my first one of these conferences. And so I'm really excited to explore this topic with you all. And yeah, I'm hoping to not only bring some fresh thoughts to you, but likewise to really glean some insights from your own experiences and perspectives. Before we jump in, just a little bit of information about me. My background originates actually in change management. So you might hear that my accent is a little different. That's because I'm from South Africa and I am currently sitting in sunny Cape Town. And that is where I studied my Bachelor of Business Science and Masters of Commerce degrees in change management, where I subsequently went on to lecture and supervise at the University of Cape Town as well. But my change management career quite quickly took me into the online education space, and I found myself working as a change management consultant on online learning projects, because as we know, shifting from traditional classroom-based learning to online education is a change. And so I've worked in this space now since 2014 as a lecturer and educator, as a program manager, as a business owner, and more recently as the Chief Academic Officer for Hubble Studios. I've been with Hubble now for just over 2.5 years. And we're a consulting agency, and we work to deliver bespoke online learning solutions for some of the best companies and most exciting higher education institutions in the world. Some of them are listed below. Of course, this is not an exclusive list. And before we jump in, I would love to get to know you a little bit better as well, just to get a sense of who is in the room with us. So if I could ask you to just pop into the chat if any of these descriptions are relevant to you, or if there's something entirely different that you do within the higher education space or educational technology space. If you could just pop that into the chat now, and we can get an idea of who we're talking with today. Okay, so I see professor, I see instructional designer. Ollie, yes, we do have penguins and they're lovely. Instructional designer, part-time online instructor. Okay, great when we get to deliver the education that we work on as well. Faculty, textbook editor, wow, interesting. Program manager, associate professor, another instructional designer. Okay, wonderful. We have a really nice mix of people in the room today, which is very exciting. Okay, and then lastly, just to cover some rules of engagement, this will be an interactive session, as Stephanie mentioned. So if you could just raise your digital hand when you'd like to speak, when you're not speaking, if you could mute your microphone so we don't have any background noises distracting our discussions. We are on a very tight schedule, and so it will be interactive and there will be plenty of opportunities for you to share your thoughts and get involved, but sometimes we might need to speed ahead and reserve some questions and thoughts for the Q&A session at the end. And then finally, this topic does not have one right answer. There's a lot of research that takes us in a lot of different directions. And of course, we all have our own experiences and opinions to bring to the discussion as well. So I expect diversity of opinions, experiences, perspectives, and they are welcomed. Okay, so what will we be covering in this session? We'll start off by talking about online learning success and why it's so important in higher education today. We'll then have a look at what we mean by online learning success and how it might depend who you ask the question to. We'll then go into a short breakout room activity where we talk about the drivers of student satisfaction. And we'll end off by talking about how we can build evaluation frameworks that are customized for our needs, the needs of our institutions, as well as the learners that we serve. And of course, at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So let's start here. Success, does it matter? So we know that today, the higher ed space looks different from what it used to look like before. Over the last few years, it's been evolving, and we now find ourselves operating on a global education landscape. Students don't need to walk down the street to the nearest university or college. They have so many choices about what they study, where they study, how they study. And so universities, and we're seeing this come up again and again in the annual reports, that's something that is really top of mind for higher ed institutions at the moment, is how do we make sure that we evolve with the needs and desires of the students that we're serving? How do we continuously improve and evolve? And you'll see I have consumers in brackets there with a question mark. We'll get to that in a moment, contentious topic. And to do this, to keep evolving and to stay up to date with the needs and desires of the students that we serve, we need to evaluate our online courses and programs. And we need to do that rigorously, we need to do it regularly, and we need to have a standardized approach, just like we do with any research or data collection, so that we are able to use the data meaningfully to make informed decisions for the future. And at this point, I want to just pause for a quick poll. So Stephanie will be posting in the chat a link and a code. If you would prefer to do this on your phone, it's nice and easy. You can just scan the QR code on screen and participate in a quick poll. So we'll look at how frequently your institution evaluates online learning. I'll give you a few seconds to do that quickly. Okay, let's have a look at some of the results we're seeing. Okay, so we've got quite a few saying occasionally, some people saying post-course, some saying during and after a course. Great. Okay. Could I ask for a volunteer? We only have time for one, but somebody who evaluates their courses both during and after the course. Would you mind just raising your hand and maybe sharing with everyone in the room the benefits, assuming you find benefits from evaluating during and after? What are the benefits, or do you have any examples worth sharing that would be a motivation for evaluating during and post? Or if it's not working for you, that's fine too. Would anybody like to share? No? Ollie, go for it.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
That's handy. So at the Open University, we do lots and lots of evaluation as we go through. We are purely online university. But where I found it really, really useful last year, we've got a completely redeveloped module last year. And by evaluating as we went through, we were able to actually make changes to the content as we were asynchronous. We could change content live for students. And some of them were getting very upset about things going wrong. So we had to make lots of changes really quickly. But if we'd have just waited till post-course, we'd have been in a real bind, A, because those students would have lost out, but also B, we'd had a very short window to fix it for the new presentation of the module. So by doing during course evaluation of the material we were doing, we were able to make the students' lives better and our lives better. And then the post-course evaluation has given us an overview of that and enabled us to kind of focus upon what's really important for the big things moving forwards.
Right. Thanks, Ollie. That makes complete sense. Being agile as we move through a course, particularly new courses. And that doesn't just mean courses that are entirely new, but perhaps courses that have historically been presented in a classroom, now being moved online for the first time. Having that agility based on the data that we collect during a course is really important. We also know that evaluation during the course can be really motivating for the learners, because ultimately what we're doing is trying to move from A to B. We're trying to achieve learning outcomes, and a cohort of students in 1 year might be quite different from the cohort we experience in the following year. And so collecting that information and giving ourselves data points based on, what kind of pace they're moving at, which areas they're finding challenging, can be really important as well. Right. So before we move on, I'd like to just pause for a moment and say, if we're talking about evaluating online learning success, perhaps it's important that we first stop a moment to agree on what we mean by online learning success. So what exactly is it? Well, it might depend who you ask. How the students defines online learning success might look quite different to how a lecturer or learning designer defines online learning success. And there is a view that looks at students as customers. It's not new. It's been around for a number of years already. And when it did first enter our world of higher education, it wasn't favorable. So it received quite harsh criticism. And as you can see with this quote here from Peter Wood, he's saying that we need to think of students as students and colleges as colleges. There's no metaphor that it fits into. We can't twist or fix this relationship. It's not a merchant-consumer relationship. It is a student and a college. But I want to argue that perhaps it's time for us to relook this perspective a little bit and to acknowledge the really important role that students play in not only our institutional success, but also the broader success of our communities. Students, like other consumers, have a lot of choices today. So we've already said they get to decide where they learn, what they learn, how they learn, and they're unencumbered by geography. They can go to a college on the other side of the world if they like. They also don't need to necessarily get a degree. The societal pressures that once were for us to go straight from school to getting our degree or qualification are different now. And some people, are the short courses and MOOCs and online certificate programs are becoming a very popular tool for people to get what they need when they need it. So if I can use an example of a fitness coach, someone who provides equipment and services for working out and improving your fitness. We might choose which coach we would like to work with based on the quality of the equipment that they provide, and possibly what we've heard about the results that we can expect if we work with this particular coach. But as their customer, we also can't expect to improve our fitness just by having a coach. We need to come to the party. We need to participate. We need to show up for every session. We need to drink water and eat healthily. We need to exercise between sessions. So what if our higher ed institutions are education service providers, and our duty as educators, lecturers, instructional designers is to design and develop high quality learning opportunities. This doesn't necessarily, or it doesn't entitle learners to learn. It just presents them with the tools and opportunities to learn, and they need to do the rest. It's their duty to leverage the quality opportunities and tools that we provide them with. And how they select where they learn and what they learn will be informed by the quality of the tools and the opportunities that they perceive. So if we say, okay, students might be customers, students might just be students. If we put that aside for a moment and say, well, what if students today view themselves as consumers? Now, there's a lot of research out there on different relationships and impacts of student satisfaction on university success or higher ed institution success. I've just listed 2 of them here that kind of plug into this diagram in different parts. But essentially, we know that when students perceive quality, and I want to just differentiate here between the quality of their university experience and the quality of the education that they're receiving, so the course that they're on, their academic experience. When they perceive quality in their courses and programs, they tend to be satisfied. And when we have student satisfaction, we typically see improved brand perceptions of the institution. And this typically leads to alumni giving, further study or repeat enrollments, and also endorsements and promotions of that higher ed institution to their peers. So maybe, regardless of how institutions or educators view students, we need to acknowledge that students might view themselves as customers, and there will be an impact based on the satisfaction that they experience. In other words, the extent to which we manage to meet or exceed their expectations. So if we just stick with this for just a second and say that if hypothetically institutions are service providers and students are their target consumers, what would the implications be for how we evaluate online learning success? And what would this mean for the drivers of student satisfaction that we can influence in the design and delivery of online learning? So I'm going to ask Stephanie to put us into breakout rooms. Stephanie, do we have sufficient people in the room to make sense for a breakout room? I think we do.
I have them set up. This is Sally. I have them set up and there are 8 and 8 right now. 8 into each room.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go into 2 groups of 8 and discuss this question, and then we'll chat about your the results of your discussion when we come back to the main room. Thanks, Sally. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had some rich conversations with your peers. And I think what often happens with this discussion is that we sort of reach the conclusion that students aren't necessarily consumers in our traditional view of them, but that the relationship between students and institutions has perhaps changed over time, and it's something we need to acknowledge and work with. So I want to get some insights from your discussion. So I'm going to ask you to do another poll. In this instance, it's actually going to be a word cloud. So again, you will see a link in the chat. Otherwise, if you'd like to use your phone, quick and easy, scan the QR code on screen, and you can add some of the drivers of student satisfaction that you discussed in your breakout rooms with your peers. What do you think is most important for driving student satisfaction, and the things that we can influence as educators, instructional designers, lecturers, etc.? There we go. Okay, wow. So we have real world assignments, absolutely relevant assignments where our learners feel like they can apply what they've learned and been tested on in the real world. Competency, yeah, and learner motivation is becoming really important in how we view online learning. Degree completion, yeah, employment and employability, absolutely. And we know that the direct link between what we study and how employable we are, or what career we end up pursuing, is not always very linear or obvious. Clarity, good design, ease, yep, convenience, value, time, outcomes, value for money, engagement, absolutely. Okay, yeah, all really relevant. And here is a word cloud based on a lot of the research that is out there. There is a lot. If anyone would like some of the references, I can send it to you, but I couldn't put them on the slide. But there's a lot of repetition in the findings about the drivers of satisfaction. And you'll see that there's a lot of overlap here with the word cloud that we created on the previous slide. For example, academic achievement and frequency of feedback speaks to assignments, how we approach formative and summative assessment, consistency, but also flexibility. So thinking about that convenience, the ability to customize one's learning journey, but also to know what to expect when they approach a new week of learning or a new course of learning in a program. Also important is instructor presence, instructional support, platform quality, social comfort, and also the type of modality. So how interactive or basic that modality is. And that often depends on the type of student and the kind of learning experience that they're looking for. So what does this mean for building an evaluation framework? We know that what the drivers of student success are, of student satisfaction. And we know that achieving student satisfaction is important for the longevity of our institutions, for remaining competitive, and for evolving with the needs of our learners. And ultimately, we know that if we can serve our learners and if we are creating learning, then we are also serving our community. For example, there was one quote by Larry Hubel, and he had an article titled "Students Aren't Consumers." And he said in that article that the college experience should be focused on the pursuit of learning, not customer satisfaction. And I think it's worth considering, what if the pursuit of learning and student satisfaction are the same thing? What if institutions want the same thing as learners do? They want to learn. If we can ultimately achieve that and both parties come to the table, then our community and our society will be growing too. So how do we build an evaluation framework that will support that, and that will be fit for purpose in adapting to online learning courses and programs, but also the online courses and programs for specific institution? We know that a lot of the time institutions have their own sort of personal blend, the things that make them special, the kinds of things that students know them for and seek out their learning for. So we know we've got Quality Matters framework, and we've got other useful checklists for practitioners and accreditation. We've also got the community of inquiry model, which looks at teaching, cognitive and social presence. But we know, for example, that when we think about online learning experiences, it's not always comparable. So, for example, in a classroom, a lecture is the only medium that we are really evaluating, whereas in online learning, we are focusing a lot on other things like student motivation, like active learning. And so we need to adapt this accordingly. How do we do that? We need to think about expectations. So for the particular learners who are attracted to a particular course, degree, certificates, whatever it is, what is appealing to them? What will matter most to them in that experiences? What promises are we making to them? And what are the expectations that we set that we'll need to keep or meet? What would we like to achieve with the data that we collect? Is it just about improving student satisfaction, or are we thinking further down the line in terms of institutional interests like increasing enrollments as well? And then what are some of the decisions that we would like to make with the data that we receive? What kind of practical decisions can we make within the limitations of our particular world, whatever that might be at a particular institution or in a particular department? And what are some of the key opportunities within that space as well that we can really leverage? You will notice that most of the drivers that we discussed in the word cloud that we created, but also in the one that I brought up of what researchers found, fit within one of these 6 categories. So at Hubble Studios, we work on a wide variety of projects for a wide variety of clients. And we have to think about the way that we evaluate success that is meaningful to that particular project. So again, coming back to fit for purpose. So we need something that can be applied to different courses and programs, depending on the parameters of those particular courses and programs. So if we look at impact, we're thinking about the learning objectives. When students finish a course, are they different from when they started it? Have they achieved those learning outcomes? What kind of impact have we had on them? We think about content. So our assets error-free? Is content relevant? Is it visually pleasing? This doesn't mean that it has to be really fancy. It doesn't even need to be created with authoring tools. It could just be visually pleasing and consistent throughout the experience, creating that coherent learning experience. We think about interaction. This could be interaction with content, with peers, or with faculty or instructors. Again, we don't need highly interactive content to achieve learning outcomes. It's great when we can do branching scenarios and 3D activities, but it's also fine when we use quizzes and live tutorials to create opportunities for those interactions. Assessment, as you guys raised, is really important. So giving them regular feedback throughout their learning experience, and us as educators also getting those data points so that we can be agile, as Ali said, and change direction where we need to. Technology, is the technology distracting? Is it too flashy? Or is it fit for purpose? Is it there to enable and support learning and not to be the star of the show? I always say that if we've used technology correctly, the students shouldn't even notice it because it's in the background. Learning comes first. And then finally, support and accessibility. Do we signpost appropriately for the support and resources that are already available at the institution, but need to be brought to the forefront, perhaps centralized in the online environment? So I want to say to you that your approach to evaluating your online courses and programs can be evaluated if we're looking at the right drivers of student satisfaction, and we're looking at them in the context of your specific institution, your courses, your programs, and we look at those 6 categories. We are going to end up benefiting not only the students that we serve, but also the institutions we serve, and ultimately leading to learning, again, coming down to the pursuit of learning, is beneficial for our society in general. And we have 12 minutes. I was initially hoping for 15, but that was perhaps too ambitious. We have, I think, 12 minutes, Sadi, for questions, thoughts on this topic, or if you have challenges in evaluating your online courses and programs that you would like to pose to the room now, things that we can brainstorm with you, anything is welcome. Stephanie, I can see you talking, but you're on mute.
So sorry, the session ends at 11:15, so we've got about 7 minutes. So I'm just going to drop a link to the evaluation for today's session.
Thank you. Okay, 7 minutes for Q&A. Apologies. You're welcome to pop thoughts in the chat as well if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself to share there. Cheryl, in my experience, KPIs at the institutional level, they're typically looking at things like enrollment, they're looking at alumni giving, they're looking at, what's the other one? There were 3 important ones. But when we think about evaluation at a course or program level, that's different. And from my experience, the faculty across courses in a program often evaluates differently. So they might use different data points, different surveys. They might distribute those surveys at different frequencies. And so it becomes a little bit difficult as we evaluate quality across the whole program or degree to look at quality, because really the intel lies within each course. I know that there are also some faculty who don't evaluate at the during or at the end of courses. So those KPIs, I don't think there's currently a lot of consistency in how we set KPIs at a course level. Graduation rates. Thanks, Nancy. Alumni giving is typically happens at events. If anyone else has a different experience, you're welcome to add, but typically happens at events where graduates or alumni are invited and there are opportunities to support the higher ed institution in some or other way, often financially, but not always.
Yeah, just to go elaborate a little bit, if that's okay, as far as alumni giving at in the United States, at a lot of institutions, it's a major thing where, and I'm sure elsewhere around the world, but I've seen it also. You establish a tie to university, like, hey, let's still connect even though you don't go to school here, but we also need your money so that we can support the next round of students.
Yeah, and again, a lot of it coming down to reputation, brand reputation and brand attachment for the particular institution. Yeah, those things like alumni giving typically are quite heavily influenced by that. Right, yeah, similar in South Africa, Ali. Thanks for sharing, Nancy.
Just a comment, not really a question, but I love Chelsey, or just the comment about community of inquiry model. I've been having a lot of fun reading about inquiry-driven learning as of late. So just the, training students to be critical thinkers so they can thrive in any environment, and always appreciate seeing that sort of stuff mentioned. So bravo.
Yeah. And in thinking about employability, also thinking about the roles of the future, the roles that don't exist yet. What are some of the key skills, like critical thinking, that will help prepare them for that? That isn't necessarily driven by the content, but rather the way in which we deliver it and engage them with that content.
Chelsey, we have about 2 minutes left, and we do have one person who would like some of the resources that you shared, and I'll send you that information. But in the last 2 minutes that we have, if you would like to give Chelsey your contact information, feel free to put your email in the chat and I'll grab that and send it to her after the session concludes.
Thank you all so much for your time. It's been a privilege being able to share this space with you all.